Alright, well, I got this tiller. Buddy asked me if I would service it. He said it's not running right. Looks like the tines are all wore out, so I'm gonna try to sharpen those. And then I also noticed this rope. Take a look at that, make sure it's not damaged. It looks kind of threadbare. And the belt for the tension is very loose. Try to get a better shot of that. Sun's not working out with me today. And it looks like the belt and the tensioner are very loose and worn. I can see some damage on the side of that belt, so I'll probably change that too and see what that entails. So let's get started. I'm going to start with the fuel system on the engine. Alright, first thing you do when you get a new machine is verify any faults that you can. See what the current running condition is. So I'll check the fuel tank. There's particles down there in the bottom. The fuel smells freshish. Then we'll check the oil as well. Just make sure there's some in there. There's some in there. Never trust the first one. So I'll go dip it again. And wow. Looks like it's a little low. So I'll top that off and then I'll see how it runs and I'll verify what's going on with it. Check the spark plug. Maybe. We'll get the boot in there. That looks okay. And I'll go grab a tool. We'll see what that looks like. Alright, got my 13/16 on a breaker bar. Let's get that on there. Plug will tell us what's going on here. So, looks pretty dark, and I don't know, maybe dirty fuel. Doesn't really look oil filed. It's a little darker, because you want a coffee color. So I'd say this thing's running okay. I don't think it's burning any oil. I'll check that gap. This plug's probably worn. It's probably original equipment. So I'll put a champion in it, like I said. But first, let's get it started and see how it runs. Alright, well, the machine ran for about 5 minutes. It ran pretty well. It's bogging down a little bit as it sits there in idle without a load on it. But generally, I think it just sat and was neglected. It's got fresh fuel in it. I think the burn looks good. I'm going to go through the carburetor just because I'm sure there's some scum in there and it could run better. And then I'm going to take these tines off. And yeah, everything should be good to go. Well, let's get the air filter off. The air filter's a little old, so I'll replace that as well. And then I'll rinse out and oil this pre-filter. So let's take the carb off and see what's in there. Guys a closer look. Alright, like I said, it's a Honda style carburetor. To remove this, you have these two linkages here. It's like a go-kart. You take this and you pull the spring out of there. And then you have to make sure that this is aligned so you can pop this out, and it should just pull straight up. So pull straight up, and then once that's out of the way, you set it down, and this whole carburetor should come off as a unit, minus the fuel line obviously, but I'll pull that off. And looks like it's a good candidate to be replaced as well from this tank because it's been sitting outside. But yeah, I'll pop that off, and then we'll see what's inside. First thing we got to do is clean out the outside so we get the bowl all dirty. We could take the choke piece off, that aside, and then we'll just douse it down. And just try to get rid of all that nastiness. You don't want it inside of your carburetor bowl. I'm going to take a 10 mil, and you're going to get a little catch. And I got a little container, and I'm going to try to take this 10 mil off right here on the bottom. Alright, once that's out, the bowl's empty. You can drain it if there's anything left. There isn't much. And then I've also learned that you don't pull on the bowl here. That you have to smack, or if you pull on the bowl, you could damage the gasket. You have a better attempt with giving it a shock and it falling off. So I just try to give it a couple taps. Once that bolts out, it loosens up, and then there's the gasket, right? It's holding on. You want to try not to rip the gasket. You can usually reuse it. So I'll just try peel her away real nice. Yep. It looks like we're going to be able to reuse that gasket. Now, if you look inside the bowl here, you can see there's a lot of contaminants and a lot of dirt. We're going to try to get this bowl as clean as we can. Then we're going to try to pull the jets out of the carburetor and clean those out and snake them through too. So we'll set this aside and we'll disassemble the carburetor. Right, the first step is to take this pin out of here for the float. So we have the pin. And then we take the float, and the float has the needle on the bottom. It has this little spring you don't want to lose, which I just lost. This little spring goes on top and it sits underneath there. Alright, so we put that inside the bowl so we don't lose it. Got the float, checking to make sure it doesn't have any cracks. It looks okay and it looks clean. And then we're going to look inside the bowl. Grab it here. Now, let's see if I can get a good picture of this. If you look inside the bowl, you can see that it has a slot for the jet there. We're going to try to remove that jet right there and pull out the idle jet that has these little holes in it. And we're going to try to get it as clean as we can. So, I personally have two screwdrivers that aren't fluted on the end. It's a straight shaft. So I use these for my carburetor. Right, so I'm going to put that in there and try to get that out. Hopefully it comes out. It's trying to strip on me. See if I gotta use my other one that's a little wider. Sometimes you can get lucky and fit one of these in there. Obviously the blade's a little wider, so let's see if I can get that in there without damaging the threads. Well, looks like it'll fit. Find it. Maybe it's not in there. And it's coming out. And you Just keep rotating it out so it comes out. Then I give it a couple taps till the jet falls out. There's the jet. And it's not labeled. You want to make sure that that hole that's inside is clean. And I don't know if you guys can see that on camera. Yeah, that hole right there. It looks like it's pretty clean. I'm still going to snake it and spray some carb cleaner through there. All right, and then we still have the idle jet that's way up in there. Let's see if I can get that one out. And the way I get that out is it's way in there, right? And then if you open the side of the carburetor, you can see that little spout that's sticking up. I'm going to push down on that with my screwdriver, or a bigger screwdriver, and I'm going to try to eject it down and out, and then I'll show you what it looks like. Stick the screwdriver in there. However you can get it in there. Maybe this side's better. Yeah, that side probably better. I'll take this right here, and then we'll just push. Give it a couple taps and it should fall out the bottom. Push it out of there. There it is. And then it fell out. Now, this is your idle jet. All right, this is for it idling. You see those little holes in there? Those are what vents, and then your main jet comes in through here, and it's vented and does like a Venturi effect. So you got to make sure you clean all these little holes. And gas nowadays likes to with the ethanol, likes to leave deposits and fill all these up, so you make sure that this thing is super clean. The throw to the carburetor, make sure this is clean inside, out, blow it all directions. So I'll clean all of that stuff up, and then I'll reassemble the carburetor. It's a carburetor. Uncle Elsa's carburetor. These are the jets. And this is the metering device.
What those?
These are screwdrivers.
Look.
Alright, buddy. Have fun tonight.
And this is spray. Dance.
Oh.
Yeah, yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. Alright, so I'm going to spray all these out. Both ways. Clean it all up. That one's good. Then we'll do this one again. Right here, all the way through. Looks like all the holes are working. Good. So then we put all that back together once we're done. So then we take our idle jet and we're going to drop that in there. And it dropped all the way in. You check it to make sure that it fell down and it's seated. And then once you can see it through the choke or the intake flap, and you know that it's seated, then you take your main jet, you put your main jet inside, drop it in, use your screwdriver, and tighten her on down. It's made of brass. This is like some cast aluminum garbage, so you don't need to torque it real tight. You just need to make sure that it's seated in there. All right. Then I'll spray off my float because there's some stuff stuck to it. Right for my towel. All right. And then save my spring. And then you're going to look at your needle. Set the spring on the side. When you look at your needle, see if I can get it in focus here. Yeah, when you look at your needle, any little contaminant on the side there where it rides in the carburetor will cause it to hang up and let fuel in. If fuel continues to enter the carburetor, it'll overfill and then it'll leak into your intake and then eventually into the crankcase. So we're going to try to avoid that. And you always want to make sure that the rubber tip on the end is still soft and not hard, and that it's not damaged in any way. So this one looks okay, and the seat that it sits on looks okay. So I'm going to clean this up and then put the float assembly back together. This little pokey brush set off of Amazon, and it's a real lifesaver. Use it on 2-cycle carbs and things like that, and it really helps out. But I just rub it down to make sure that it's smooth on the side. If it has a bunch of buildup, you could use one of the edges to scrape anything off. Just make sure you don't damage that rubber seal. All right, and then after I'm done scraping, I always spray it again. That looks good. All right, so now we've got our needle and our spring that goes on top. Then you push the float assembly down. Maybe. The spring rides underneath to give it tension. It sits like that. Then you take your float in your needle, go inside the hole. Take your pin, and your pin secures it all together. And make sure you get it though. Alright, now that's done, we'll take care of the bowl. The bowl doesn't look too bad, but I'll scrape it a little bit. And I typically take a green scratch pad and I go inside this bowl and I try to clean up the inside. Get rid of all that dirt, the deposits that are stuck in the bottom. But you want to try to get rid of as much of it as you can. Doesn't have to be perfect. It's not the space shuttle. It ran before, but it's going to run a lot better without those particles inside the bottom of the bowl. Make sure after you clean this out that you spray it down again with carb spray. You want this thing to be really clean. So. After all that's done, you take this, and it's got a step here. Make sure that your gasket is seated, so you don't want any leaks. And then you place it on top. Correct way is this way. So you sit the choke side out. So when you go to put this on, you want to make sure that that U right here is the step for your float. So that U shape, and this faces the pin that holds your float together. This screw down here. Put that on there correctly. Make sure that your seal is intact here on your bottom bolts. We can clean the top of that off. Looks like there's some rust where it goes into the carb, so I'll clean that off as well. And I'll just scrape it with my screwdriver. Give it a little spray. And that looks a lot better. So I'll put that U shape on there. This goes towards the back of the carb. This goes on. Hand tight first, make sure nothing's hanging up. Impact, zip around there. There you go. It's a clean carburetor ready back for install. Reinstall this carburetor. Well, it runs a lot better. Let's sharpen up these tines and see if we can get it to cut a little better. Alright, so I'm going to remove those tines. And the joy of making YouTube videos is you don't really have to pay attention because you can look back at this video to put them back on. So I'm going to pull those off, zip them off, and then I'll see about sharpening them. Fully disassembled. Now I'm going to work on untangling this mess. Ooh, got some hardware. I want to forget that. So I'll clean all that up and then I'll get back to you. Just put a sharp edge on there, and then I flatten the back. So I'm gonna do the rest of these, and then yeah, I'll install them, and then we'll be good to go. Well, I got the tines all put back on. Sharp, I matched the marks, and I watched my video because I can't remember anything. And looks like everything's good. So all that's left to do now is take it in my backyard and start brushing up my backyard. Start digging. I'm gonna lay some grass seed, so this will actually come in handy to disturb the earth. So I'll get a few clips of that, and yeah, see how she does. Welcome to my backyard. Very desolate and nothing grows but weeds, but hopefully that'll change. Hopefully I can get this thing started, and well, I know it'll start. I just had it started. Hopefully it cuts really well and it tills up the ground. I am not a landscaper by any means. It seems pretty easy to me, so I'll get some clips and tear up my backyard. I said, runs a lot better. I'm not a landscaper by any means, but I think that'll do the job. I still have to change the belt, but I'm going to use it. If it breaks, I'll change it. But that concludes my video. Thanks for watching.